Hi, everyone. According to legend, the emperor, Charlemagne, once said that to know a second language is to possess a second soul. Sounds hokey, right? Charlemagne was the first emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, located in modern-day Germany around the late 8th century of the Common Era. But when Charlemagne first made this grand allegation around the year 800, he couldn't have predicted things like mass communication on a global scale through the World Wide Web. He couldn't have predicted that centuries later, the forces of globalization would connect people who speak different languages instantaneously, and that these languages would be changed by these interactions. He couldn't have imagined digital translation technologies like Google Translate, where you can type a phrase in one language, and the computer program will spit the same phrase back out in a different language, from French to Yoruba. All of the words that we've invented in the past 2 decades, words like Facebook, FOMO, selfie, and app, would have been totally unrecognizable to him. So really, what can one man who lived more than 1,000 years ago, who wouldn't even know what a computer is, tell us about language in the 21st century? Some recent research out of the University of Dusseldorf from 2015 reveals just how small and interconnected our global community has become. 14% of people, or 1 in 7 people worldwide, speak Mandarin Chinese as their primary language. The second most widely spoken, English, boasts 527 million speakers and 1.5 billion learners. But the fact that surprised me the most is 2/3 of all people alive today speak one of just 12 of the world's most commonly spoken languages. And we're talking out of 7,000, more or less, on the planet. So between these digital translators and lingua francas like Mandarin, English, Spanish, and Hindi, many would argue that learning languages has become less relevant today, especially as universities begin to phase foreign language out of their general education curricula. They'd say that the wistful spiritual attitude of Charlemagne is just a relic of the past. Yeah, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they took French or Latin or whatever in school, but all we need is Google Translate and an assumption that wherever we travel on this vast planet, someone nearby will likely speak English. Now, I can definitely speak to all of the scientific studies demonstrating the values of being bilingual. Studies show time and time again that bilingual people have greater mental acuity because of the task of balancing multiple languages at the same time. A recent study out of Northwestern University shows that bilingual children have better focus in the classroom and they're better at filtering out background noise. One report I saw from the Department of Education purports that bilingual children are better at logic, decision-making, math, memory, and even going on to learn other languages. For me, personally, I've just always kind of had a knack for language. You know, for some people it's math, and for others it's writing, and for me it's language. But the reason that I've devoted my academic career and even part of my own personal time to studying other languages is not because of the benefits that I already know I am reaping. Rather, I see it as an act of service to others. What do I mean by that? Well, frankly, it all kind of starts with dongo, which naturally is the Korean slang word for butthole. So much of my worldview has been impacted by some friendships I made with international students at my high school in Northern Kentucky, Villa Madonna Academy. It was my sophomore year of high school, and in my geometry class, I was seated next to 2 girls from South Korea named Eve and Haewon. I didn't know Eve or Haewon very well at this point, but every day before class started, I'd watch over their shoulders as they watched news clips and TV highlights from back at home on their school-issued iPads. I was terribly curious to know what was going on in all of these clips, so one day I just inserted myself into one of their conversations. They were happy to answer any questions that I had, but we were both surprised when I went home and I looked up the music that they'd recommended me, and I came back the next day asking for more suggestions, because oops, I'd gotten into K-pop along the way. So now before geometry started each day, even Haewon slowly began to teach me Hangul, which is the Korean writing script. Hangul was developed by King Sejong in the 16th century as a way of increasing literacy among the common people. And therefore, it was specifically designed to be easy for people to pick up. But don't worry, I struggled with it for a couple of weeks. Slowly, I learned how to write out Haewon and Eve's Korean name, Jiwon, and they gave me a few words or phrases of the day. And yes, one of those words was butthole, because we were indeed 15 years old. But at first, this was just a much-needed distraction from geometric proofs and equations. But as I started to think about the choices that my friends and their parents made for their schooling, I started to take this a bit more seriously. See, at this point, I'd never been away from home for more than a week, and never out of the country. My friends, on the other hand, left home at 14 years of age to come to my home, the United States, to learn my language, my culture, and my customs. Naturally, the impact that going to high school abroad would have had on their college and career prospects were immense. But I was nevertheless moved by the courage and the resilience that they demonstrated at such a young age. And I still am. I studied in Spain for a month last summer, and while I loved my time abroad, I struggled with homesickness every single day. My friends did this every day for 4 years, and I have nothing but love and gratitude for what they accomplished and the friendships that we developed over those years. That being said, learning Korean is hard work. I have made mistakes and embarrassed myself plenty of times. I've tried to study it on my own with only modest success, but I do keep trying. And I keep trying because to learn another person's language is to step outside of yourself and into the soul of another. To learn another person's language is to meet that person exactly where they are. When I volunteer as a Spanish medical interpreter, or I speak to one of my professors here in very broken Korean, it's my way of trying to say that although English is the dominant language here in the United States, I would never expect someone to change their way of life or to forsake their culture to better convenience me. It's hospitality to the quote-unquote other. It's the least we can do. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, though, because the ancient Greeks were pretty smart dudes and ladies, not that we remember them, and they had a word for what I'm talking about, and that word is agape. It translates roughly to pure self-gift, and that comes from the theologian Michael J. Himes. It's different from philia, brotherly love, and it's different from eros, selfish love. It's the kind of love which gifts and expects nothing in return, not even increased mental acuity or a line on your resume. It's humble love, it's giving love, it's selfless love. Digital translators and common tongues like Mandarin and English, these facilitate trade and aid communication so that we are even more connected than we already were before. But taking the time to learn another language, be it through a class, an app, or baptism by fire when you're studying abroad, this isn't going away. It was relevant to Charlemagne, it's relevant today, and it will be relevant in the lifetimes to come. Taking the time to learn another language may feel old school, but this is our future, because love is our future, our shared common language, the language we never have to learn. Thank you.